Welcome to Survival Theory. Just doing a quick vid to show you what I did during the Texas apocalypse. Loss of power for up to days at a time during extremely cold temperatures. It was in the single digits Fahrenheit, 5, 6, 7. And that's a big deal here. So you're looking at potentially loss of water, burst pipe, your home freezing. How do you stay warm? Alternate sources of energy, things like that. So I'll just show you what I did. That was real simple and effective. So I didn't have any pipes burst or anything like that. My pipes are well insulated. That's one thing you got to remember. Either drip your pipes or insulate your pipes. Mine are well insulated. I did have a water problem though. I had to rip out flooring because my trap froze for the washing machine, the clothes washer. Now that's not about prepping, that's just about using your head. I wasn't using my head. The washing machine was run, and of course the trap was frozen because it's kind of outside. So the washing machine dumped the water into the trap and it backflowed all onto the floor, so I had to rip that up. But no broken pipes, no problems like that. So with no heat, how do you keep your house warm when it's freezing outside? Your house is going to get at or below freezing very soon on the inside. And for many people it did. Their inside of their house was literally freezing. Well, you see this plastic up here. I put the plastic up over the openings of this living room. I isolated the living room to focus the heat on the living room. And on this opening here, I just have a blanket. It even has a few holes in it. That allows air circulation, through the house, so it doesn't freeze in the rest of the house, but it certainly doesn't warm up like it does in here. So for light at night, candles are a primary source. Some of them even smell good. So they put out enough light in a room where you can find your way around, see things. One source of heat and light, mostly light, but some heat, hurricane lamps with oil. I highly recommend that every house has at least one hurricane lamp, some extra oil, and extra wicks. They'll burn a long time and give off plenty of light. And of course, the wind doesn't blow it out because it has this glass over it. But everybody should have some of these, at least one. Some other light sources include these Goal Zero lights that plug directly into this battery. And they use virtually no power, so it's no problem. Also have this Sunglife portable power station. Use that for charging phones, gadgets, and it never even went below 100%. So I don't even need to recharge this after using it during the power outage. It's got plenty of power still in it. This is a renewable light source. I've reviewed this light before. Had it for a long time. Of course, oil lamps. Dependable. And since it's freezing outside, can keep everything outside. This is refrigerated items, so it's too cold to have this out here, so I put it out here, get it cold, and then I take it back inside so that it doesn't freeze. Then the freezer items, I just leave out here because they're frozen. It's freezing out here. That's a good cooler. It'll work well. But these refrigerated items, just let it get real cold and then take it inside because it'll freeze out here. I've already lost some lettuce by leaving it out here too long. So what do you do about cooking? Well, you can have one of those, like a Coleman stove that folds out. They're large enough to cook a full meal on. You hook the gas up to it. You've also got a gas grill or charcoal grill. You can use one of those. I just used one of these jet power fuel sources on my little rocket stove, and that worked fine for cooking up small meals. You can also build a fire outside. Think of it as camping. You got to do what you got to do. hot dogs. Just melt some snow or use stored water. So how am I keeping warm in this area that I've got closed off? I've got the fireplace here. It's an airtight. You can throw a lot of wood in that thing. And you get your wood going. You seal it off where it's getting no air. You can control the air. You know, let it get some air or just shut off the air. It has a catalytic converter in it, which means it burns up all the exhaust from the fire, such as the smoke and soot, converts that into heat. And around the perimeter of this, there's a chamber. When that air gets hot, it blows it out through these vents right here. So it can warm this room up incredibly well. It can actually warm most of the house up. But how do I power this? Because this is inside the walls. It's hooked into, my power, into the circuits. So what I did to power the fireplace is I got my Yeti 1400 and I plugged this into the wall. Before I go any further, let me say real quick, make sure you turn off the breakers where you're going to plug in a battery or other power source into a wall. If you don't turn off that breaker for that circuit, your power source will try to feed power maybe all the way to the power station on the other side of the state. So you got to turn off that breaker to limit how far that electricity is trying to go. So to take the power from this battery and put it into the wall, there's a socket right there. I made a cord that has a male end on both ends. There you go. Now it's very important that because you have two male ends, that's an exposed tip when it's plugged in. Shock, shock, electrocution, electrocution. You've got to be careful. So with the breaker turned off, I plug this into the socket. That means there's no power going to this end because the power is out and the breaker is off. Now I plug it into the battery. When power comes back on, what I need to do is leave the circuit breaker off, unplug from the battery, and then unplug this from the wall. Once both are unplugged, I can turn on that circuit breaker and everything's back on the grid. So while this is plugged into the wall, you can use anything that's on that circuit. In my case, I was able to turn on the pantry lights, a couple other lights. I could have plugged in the refrigerator. It's on the same circuit. But I didn't need to because the food's outside. And this was on the circuit, so I was able to heat up the house with the fireplace. Now another advantage to putting all the food in the coolers, that means I don't have to try to use energy on that refrigerator. During a power outage, you want to conserve your energy, whether it's through a generator or a battery or whatever. So I didn't have to run the refrigerators, didn't have to worry about them. So I'm serious about that cord that has two male ends on it. You cannot leave it plugged in on one end and just laying there on the other, because two exposed prongs, that's an exposed wire. So you got to be careful when you're doing that, but it works. Just remember to turn off that breaker. Now one of the advantages of using that battery is, of course, I can keep that battery inside. There's no fumes. And I can plug it into any circuit I want very easily. I can run an extension cord to a different circuit. Maybe I want to have, my regular lights on in one room, or I want to run a small appliance in this other room. I can just run extension cords. Of course, making sure I turn off breakers. So a lot of hard lessons were learned by some people from this storm. Whether it's, having adequate emergency water supply, an adequate emergency food supply, a way to cook the food, a way to stay warm without the grid. You know, there's just a lot of things that a lot of people have learned, hopefully. Although I suspect a lot of people will just carry on as usual. You know how it is. I learned a few lessons also, so it was very interesting. But all in all, I just like playing in the snow. It's pretty cool. Well, thanks for watching Survival Theory. Please share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. G.I. Snow is still standing, but he lost his eyes. Put him back in there for a while.